This is a story called The Silver Pocket Watch. Rennie Summers wanted a gift for her husband, something special for the 20th anniversary. It had been a long and enduring relationship, and like all marriages, not without its problems, but Mark had stayed with her despite the ups and downs. So, something personal was her intention. She loved her husband, and he, thank God, loved her. And so a gift was needed that reflected this. Rennie had tried the jewellers in town, plenty of wonderful items to choose from: rings, chains, wristwatches, jewel-encrusted diaries, gold-plated fountain pens, swish personalised document carriers, silver-handled briefcases. Yet despite the choice, the range, the myriad of glittering marvels, nothing jumped out at her as appropriate. Lovely, yes, but personal or unique, alas, no. The old curiosity shop, a name copied and pasted straight out of Dickens's novels, with its gaudy Victorian china dolls, ex-army surplus ammo cases, canvas bags, and varnish-peeling mantelpiece clocks crammed in the dusty plate-glass window, had caught her eye on many occasions, and just as frequently had been dismissed out of hand. The thought of something previously owned, now unloved, scratched and in need of repair, tarnished by abandonment, wasn't exactly what Rennie had in mind. Quite why, then, she stepped through the dark blue doorframe and ventured into the junk emporium, she couldn't guess. But time was running out, and the anniversary meal was soon upon them, and she still hadn't settled on a gift. The minute she entered, she wanted to return to daylight and the normality of the high street. Perhaps it was the vacant staring eyes of the decapitated boar's head, or the rigid length of the 3-foot pike in the broken glass display box that had made her shiver. The musty smell didn't help either. Somewhere, under a table, something, possibly even the proprietor, for she was totally alone in the shop, had crawled there and died. She would have left, had not a flicker of movement from the upright hat stand not caught her attention. Rennie stood rooted to the floor, gaping in disbelief at the snake. Yes, it was a snake. She wasn't dreaming it. It had wound itself around the central core of the bamboo hat stand. A black forked tongue flicked like constantly stretching elastic from its ponderous head. It was alive. "A python, madam," a voice said quietly to her left. Spinning round, Rennie came face to face with the curiosity shop's proprietor as he emerged from behind a blue velvet curtain that led through a doorway to the back. "A red dragon, python, madam," the grey-bearded man added, as if that clarified everything. Rennie nodded, as if in agreement, despite the fact that the python was neither red nor dragon-like. But as far as she could tell, it was unfettered and free to run amok all over the place. "May I help you, madam?" said the shopkeeper, his face hidden by the shadows, yet immaculately dressed in deep blue and dark purple. The clothing, it seemed to Rennie, was from some pre-modern period. Overcoming the bizarre sensations and wishing to rush for the door, she smiled and shook her head. No, my mistake. I came in error." And she turned to go. "But, madam," said the man, still half hidden by the velvet curtain, "surely you came in for this, did you not?" Rennie turned involuntarily and discovered the figure holding aloft a silver chain, on the end of which was a beautiful and rather dazzling pocket watch. Where the light that radiated from it came from, Rennie couldn't explain, for the dreary shop was only illuminated by a couple of old-fashioned, although quite ornate, gas lamps. but she couldn't take her eyes off the sparkling miniature clock face. She stepped forward to study the wondrous antique more closely. "He will adore it," the man reassured her, placing the pocket watch in her hand. "Yes, he will," Rennie agreed. Then, when the implication of what he had said had crystallized in her mind, the man dropped the remaining length of the chain he still held in his hand, so that Rennie felt the full weight of the timepiece. I need to have it engraved," she blurted, looking up at the curious salesman, who regarded her steadily with his green, penetrating, and yet faintly familiar eyes. "But it's already been inscribed for you, madam," he said in a half-whisper. Rennie blinked stupidly back at him, not comprehending at first, and then, gazing at the watch in her hand, she turned it over to look at the rear casing. It read, "Happy anniversary, Mark. All my love, Renee." "But how?" she stammered. The bearded proprietor took her hand and pressed her fingers around the watch and chain, encapsulating it. "Take it," he smiled. "No charge." "But I don't understand," Rennie managed. "No, go now," the old man insisted, ushering the fashionably dressed woman towards the door. "I must close up and attend to other business. Go now." Suddenly the door was shut, and Rennie found herself on the high street again, the sound of the traffic and pedestrians assailing her ears as if someone had abruptly turned up the volume. 2 days later, in the romantic atmosphere of a posh restaurant, Rennie and Mark had finished their magnificent anniversary meal. They sipped the last of their wine. "Thank you, darling," Renee said, gazing into her husband's eyes. There was a curious spark in them, she thought, that cheeky glint that he always had when he was up to mischief. "Wait a second," Rennie exclaimed. "Green eyes? No, it couldn't be. Please, tell me it wasn't you." Mark reached into his pocket and produced what at first appeared to be a mass of grey cotton wool, but after holding it up to his chin, Renee recognised it as a very lifelike false beard. "You rotter!" she shrieked. "It was you!" Mark beamed at her. "I suppose you're wondering how I got you into that funny old joke shop. Certainly the last place you would think to enter." "Yes, and I nearly didn't." Mark sat back. "Don't you remember the sales assistants of all the jewellery shops that you visited being incredibly unhelpful and mentioning perhaps the curiosity shop might be able to help you?" Rennie chuckled. "Ah, well, now you mention it," she said. "I do remember thinking how odd, because that's the last place I would think to look." "And it was," grinned Mark. "But with their subliminal messaging, which of course I bribed them to repeat, it got you into the junk shop. And old Reg, the owner, played along, lent me the clothes. After all, I was paying a fair sum for this wonderful watch, which was far too expensive for a mere gift." Renee laughed. She opened her bag and produced the watch. It was now beautifully wrapped, and she handed it to Mark. "Happy anniversary, darling. But do tell me why you went to all that trouble." Mark held the watch in his hand lovingly. "I spotted it in the junk shop window and went in to inquire. Reg told me it was a treasure, and when I asked him how much, he said, 'Oh no, it's not for sale.' But look at it, it's beautiful. And I had to have it, so I said, 'How much?' Reg thought about it for a while, and then he said he could not part for less than £1,000. Well, it has to be worth more, surely. And with the anniversary coming up, and I thought with Reg's help I might entice you to get it for me. Of course I'd already paid for it and had it engraved." Mark waved to the waiter to ask for the bill. Rennie admired the watch a second time. "It is a marvellous timepiece," she said, "and surely worth every penny." "Yes," said the waiter, the bill in hand. "It's funny, I've got one of those, exactly the same, from the old curiosity shop. Not bad, is it, for a tenner? I think they've got a job lot on, and they want to get rid of them quick. All my mates are thinking of buying them. They're quite fashionable, aren't they?" Mark peered at him, somewhat gobsmacked.